I was at the rec center one time after a workout, and there was a little kid just staring at me. And I was like, hey, can I help you? And he was like, do you play football, mister? That's how he sounded.
That sounded terrible.
I don't know if that's how he sounded, but he was like, mister, do you play football? You look like you play football. Can I have an autograph, mister? That's how he sounded. Mister, can you play football? What? Welcome to the Watering Hole with Freddie Walton and Tyler Gaylord.
I think we got it there.
Go ahead.
We can cut out all the other fuck-ups.
Yeah, grab a drink and join us at the Watering Hole.
Done.
Boom.
Done and done. Cheers.
Good to see you. Good to see you. We are back with another week. I want to start this one off with a little. This is kind of a little anecdote. I was doing some Instacarting, and
what is this Instacart?
What is Instacarting?
For those who don't know, what is Instacart?
It is the Lyft and Uber of the grocery world. It's a way to make quick cash.
Sure.
You go grocery shopping for a bunch of people who don't want to go grocery shopping, and you make some change for it.
Right, and in the days of the pandemic, you put yourself at harm's way in supermarkets where there's a bunch of pandemic.
I wouldn't call me a hero, but I will accept savior.
Right. You need a medal.
Exactly. Just recognition at least.
More than Chewbacca ever got.
Exactly.
Until episode 7. So yes,
but I was Instacarting, and this was just some good positive vibes for me. I go in. It's a really old man, right? I ring the doorbell, and his screen door is closed, but his door is open, so I can see inside the house. And you just see him. All I hear is just like, "I'll be right there." And
sounds like he broke his leg.
He sounded like he might have been halfway to death.
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah. Next thing you know, this guy comes wobbling around the corner, and I was like, "Sir, clearly this man needs. There's like 4 bags here," and I'm like, "Sir, would you like me to help you carry these in?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he goes, he had a question that he asked me, because he goes, I remember when he was 93 years old, right? And he goes, I remember when I was as big as you. And he's telling a joke. He was a small man. He's like, I remember when I was big as you. And I was like, that's me. And he's like, oh, you play football? And I was like, no, I'm just big for no reason.
Everyone asks you that.
They always do.
Like literally the amount of times that I've been in a grocery store with you or Walmart or something, and some random person will be like, hey, buddy, you play football?
Oh, yeah. It's a thing. It's
like at this point you have to play football.
I was at the rec center one time after a workout, and there was a little kid just staring at me. And I was like, hey, can I help you? And he was like, do you play football, mister? That's how he sounded.
That sounded terrible.
I don't know if that's how he sounded, but he was like, mister, do you play football? You look like you play football. Can I have an autograph, mister? That's how he sounded.
The imagery from that voice is not great.
Whatever you're picturing, that's him. That is exactly who was in the... Mister, do you play football?
He's getting weirder and weirder every iteration.
Because he was in his
Originally,
eyes. Mister, can you play football?
The first time you told the story, it was just a kid being like, hey, mister, can you sign up? And then you just got wilder.
He's aggressive, and he grew like 5 feet. Mister, can you play football? Anyway.
But seriously, no, I need to... It's got to be fucking annoying how many people ask you if you play football.
It's only annoying because I have to respond the same every time. Nah, I'm just big for no reason.
No, I didn't do anything useful with this.
It feels like I just let them down every time. Like, and the thing is, most of the time they're asking not in like a did you play? They say who'd you play for? And I just got to sit there and go.
It's the same. It's the same thing as if like you're a tall person. They're always like, "Help me! You play basketball?" And it's like, no, dude. I just hit my head on fucking door frame.
Yeah, my mama gave me cream of wheat a lot. I don't know what you want. Like I grew big.
My fucking mom just like grabbed me by the leg and swung me around until I grew.
She stretched me out.
Yeah.
That's that. I always
so this
do
old
this.
man.
Anyway,
old man.
93-year-old man, and he's making these jokes about me being big, but then he says this, and I don't know why I loved it so much. I go, no, I'm just big for no reason. And he goes, do you appreciate it? And if you're making a dick joke.
No.
You're not making a dick joke, right?
No, I'm not even going to make a joke. I was originally going to say something along the lines before, and you're like, I'm just big for no reason about... That's probably what porn stars would, I was going to go there.
Okay.
But not after... It wasn't the response to him being like, do you appreciate it? That was a thoughtful comment. That was a thoughtful face.
Okay,
that
good.
It hit me.
Pretend
it
you
hit
didn't
my
hear
brain.
about the porn thing. Then
it hit my brain, and I went,
right?
There.
It really did. It made me think a little bit. because I've been used to people saying, "Do you play football?" And obviously, I'm a big man. I'm used to that. But something about, because he was obviously decrepit at this point. Like he would continue to go on about how, like, you know, everyone says you want to grow old, but they don't understand it's not always a blessing. And he also came back with, he was very privileged to have lived as long as he did, and 93 years old. But he was like, "Oh, my head hurts and my ankle hurts and my hips are this and my that." And he was like, "It comes with a price." Yeah, but you know, he ended it with the Lord is good and he blessed me with many years. But oh man, you got to pay for them. And so he was just positive. But the question that he asked when he was just like, "Do you appreciate it?" It really made me think. It stuck with me, because he was in a position where he would kill just to be able to have the strength that I have. I'm sure even just the strength of anyone, to be able to walk without help, to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with you in the gym. There's like half the guys there would kill to have the strength that you have.
Thank you. But it really, like, it gave me a little bit of positivity that I wouldn't have had otherwise. It wasn't a bad day, but he helped make it a good day with that question.
I had a very similar experience about last week, but it wasn't. It didn't strike me as a positive. It struck me as a I don't even know if profound. It just hit me, and it stuck with me, and it will forever stick with me. I remember I sent a text message to my mother about it because I was like, I texted her. I was like, I pulled over. It was in the middle of two batches, right? So I delivered to this guy, and then there was another house 5 minutes away.
Also Instacart. He does Instacart as well. That's what
I literally pulled over on the road so I could write this fucking novel, basically what happened, because I go, I don't know, Mom. I just had to tell somebody about this. And it may not translate like it hit me at the moment on the mic. That's why I haven't told the story, but I'll tell it now since you had that story.
Yeah.
So I'm doing Instacart, and it was like 2 or 3 batches, so there's 2 or 3 different customers on this one order. And when you're out of stuff, I like to make sure that people get the replacements that they want. So I always have great communication, and then at the end, before I check out, if I haven't heard from them, I call them. So I called this guy because I didn't hear back from him. Usually it's old people who don't know how to use technology that well, so I call him. And he sounds very frail, very hoarse on the other end of the line. Seems very thankful for me to be calling him about the replacements. And I remember he said, because he wanted the frozen orange juice concentrate, the stuff that, you know, you get in the freezer and then you put it in and then you mix it with water. And he wanted the Kroger brand, the generic brand of it. And I said, you know, they're out of the one that you wanted, but they do have the Minute Maid one. And it was like $1 more. And he wanted 3 of them. And I was like, you do have the Minute Maid one if you want. And he goes, no, that's too expensive. Just refund it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go, and he kept talking to me before I hung up. He goes, when you get here, there's a cart, just because he had a jug of waters and stuff like that. He was like, just put it in the cart, make it easier for you to get up here. And I was like, I don't need to. I'm a strapping young man. I was like, I don't need to anyway. So I get to his spot, and
apartment or house?
It's an apartment. And I look, and there's no way to punch in a code. There's no way to get into the apartment gate. Someone has to let you in from the other side. So he actually calls from his balcony. He goes, Tyler. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, Robert, how do I get in? He goes, I gotta come down to get you. And it's this like really just like frail old man. He has this big bushy ponytail, this beard. Looks like someone straight out of the 70s that just, you know, has aged. And he comes down, and he's like, grab a cart. And he, like, for him, the cart was like a big lifesaver thing, and he was frail, and I realized why it meant so much to him. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if I have to carry it to his apartment, I got no issue carrying this 24-pack of water and these groceries. It's not a big deal. But I was like, but maybe you just, you know, in the days of COVID, sometimes people just want you to just, like, hand it to them, and they take it from there. Right? They don't want you to follow him. So I was like, maybe he wants the cart to push himself. So I was like, I put it in the cart in case he just wanted to take the cart up to his apartment. So he comes down, he walls down with his cane, and I go, hey, Robert. I was like, do you want to take the cart? Do you want me to follow you up? He goes, can you follow me up? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And so as he's walking with me, I just ask him, like, how's the day going and stuff like that. And he starts mentioning about how he was, like, really afraid before I came here that he was going to black out again, that he was going to faint.
Oh, no.
And he's like, I've been really dizzy and shit like that. And he's like, I was afraid I was going to black out again, so thanks for helping carry my stuff up. And so I was like, what's that about? Obviously, I have to ask at this point. I was like, what's going on? turns out that he had like a heart surgery of some sort, like a valve replaced to try to fix that, right? And he's recovering from that. And this man looks like really just fragile and old. So he's telling me about life and about what's kind of going on with him. We're taking the elevator up. And this man was so sweet, so generous, so full of like he had life in him, but it was dulled by life. It was dulled in some sense. And there's just this weird feeling that I was looking at not who Robert really is, who he is now, but it's not who he was. Like I had the feeling he was much more full of life at one point, you know? And I follow him up into this really decrepit old Los Angeles apartment that hasn't been maintained in like 30 years.
Yeah.
I come to his door. He needs me to bring the water in to drop it down on the floor someplace. So it opens up to this messy studio apartment. And I don't know why, but I remember there was the big face clocks on the desk, and I'm just looking at this apartment and being like, Robert's at the end of his life, and this is what he has for his day.
Yeah.
A studio apartment, a bed that, you know, he struggles to get in and out of, and like you could just see a life trying to be lived here. And I was like, what is he living for? What is he doing? And I put the stuff down, and I talked to him for a little bit longer. It wasn't anything profound that he said to me. The stuff that your guy said was much more profound. But but
it was a realization.
I looked in his eyes and I saw life that had just been dulled by the fucking veracity that is life sometimes. That it just sometimes hits people harder than others. And I was like, does he have family? Does he have friends? Has he had a good life? I started like replaying who was Robert when he was younger. It was like I was looking at a Robert that was 20 or 30 years old and full of laughter and full of life. And I was like, did he have dreams? Did he have dreams as big as me? Did he meet those dreams? Did he not meet those dreams? But at the end of the day, this is what his life is now. And it just struck me, and he was so grateful that Instacart was a thing, and that I got to help him deliver this stuff, right? And he tipped me in cash, I remember he said thank you, and he said thank you, and he's like, thank you so much for everything. And the way he said it was just so full of a genuine feeling, like you really felt like you were helping this person. And I remember walking away from that apartment thinking about who a younger Robert could have been, and then the one thought that just kept sticking to me was how fragile life can be. How fragile this thing, like it made me much more appreciative of the fact that I do have a body that works, that I do have a good physical frame, that I am strong, that I am young, and I have energy, and I can pursue the things I want to pursue, because not everyone can. It was just one of those moments that it's not anything great happens to you, but it sticks with you. And then really quick, to top it off, that person, after I text this little story about Robert, I go 5 minutes from his house, literally a mile from his house, and I deliver to a mini mansion. Another sort of older woman, probably younger than Robert, but sort of older. And it's like looking at an entirely different life, like how life can be. Like literally, Robert's in a studio apartment 1 mile down from her, and she has this mini mansion. And she opens up the garage door. I hand her one bag. It was all Kleenexes and flushable wipes. That was it, right? That's what she had Instacarted, and I'm not judging that, but I remember I handed it to her. She looked confused that I was there when she opened the garage door. Like I told her I was here. She opened it for me. She knew I was there, but she looked confused that I was a person. And then I handed her the bag, and I go, have a nice day. She goes, okay. And the door's just shutting behind her. On a normal day, that interaction doesn't strike me as anything. But compared to what I had just gotten from 5 minutes with Robert, with how appreciative he was, because life, like just this one little thing made his life just a little bit easier. And then to juxtapose that with this lady who had a mansion and I don't know why it struck me. I don't want to sound like an asshole that's like, oh, she should have wished me have a nice day back. But just the idea of being like, have a nice day. And she goes, okay. It struck me as so cold.
Well, so the first thing I think about when I hear that, a while ago, like probably 5 episodes or so, when we had Nathan on the podcast, we had talked about potential. And it makes me think that when you see Because what you saw, you looked in Robert and you saw just life, right? Like a generous, and it seemed like there was almost an energy in his eyes that was dulled by life.
Yeah, like he had energy in his body, but his body couldn't bring it.
Yeah,
you know?
and you saw it through his eyes. You could see that. And to me, that kind of translates as like potential, right? You go back, 50, 60 years, you look in those eyes, you see that same thing, you go, there's potential there. There's something that Robert's going to do, because if you go around and you spend your whole life giving that energy, having someone see you and you're that generous and you're that kind, it just feels like there's so much potential there, because a person like that has to have something good coming for them. When you view that, but it's past their time and perhaps it didn't work out, there is sort of a deep, like, I hear that story and the first thing I think is, Robert don't deserve that.
Right.
Robert don't deserve that. There's something in him.
Right.
And there's a heartbreaking nature to the idea that there's just not enough time anymore.
That's what I mean about the fragile nature of life. It is something where I just again, I don't want to get political, and I don't know the right way to handle economics of stuff, but there was something where I felt like people like Robert should be better looked after. At the end of your life, no matter who you are, you shouldn't have to go back to this fighting tooth and nail just to get by. I mean, that apartment was a mess, and he didn't even have enough money, probably from his medical bills of having to get his valve replaced. They couldn't afford $1 more upgrade on frozen orange juice. And I'm sitting there just being like, yeah, he doesn't deserve that. Yeah,
it makes you kind of makes you want to live a life where at the end of it, you don't have to worry about the $1 upgrade for orange juice.
Honestly,
I hate
who knows what happened.
Oh yeah,
it could have been complete. A quick other story, just real quick. I remember when I was selling gutters, there was a man whose house was completely decrepit. I'm talking trees growing out of the side of it.
Jeez.
Bad. It was a huge house. Used to look like it was great, you could tell. Just hasn't been maintained. I'm getting there. I'm selling them these high-end gutters. I'm measuring the thing. One section of the house is caved in. I'm like, we're going to have to fix that before we can even put gutters. Like, why are you looking at gutters, dude, right?
Yeah.
The house is a mess. I'm talking to this guy, and he tells me a little bit of his life story, and he tells me that he worked for this furniture store that was hopping. It was good. He had a good job, great benefits, all that stuff like that. And I think it was like 25 years or so he needed into his pension. And he was at year 23, 24. And they got bought out by a bigger company, like when he was 20 years in or 21 years in, something like that. So he works there under the bigger company for a few more years. They realize that he needs to get to year 25 before his pension gets guaranteed. And they fired him at 24.
No.
And he was left with jack shit. And so he had nothing, like, probably because of also his decisions. He didn't have a lot probably saved. He was probably banking on the pension to be able to, recurring income for the rest of his life after he retires. And it just got fired, upended everything. He was too old to start a new job, didn't have anything backed up.
Oh, and someone out there is evil.
And I'm looking at that shit just like, I remember I walked away from that just being like, fuck, man, people do get fucked over in this world. Sometimes, obviously, I mean, if you want to be an asshole, you could be like, well, he should have saved, he should have done this, he should have had plans in place. Yeah, maybe. But sometimes life just hits you and it's hard to come back from. Sometimes just bad shit happens to you, man. And so maybe that's the case with Robert. Maybe that was just like, maybe he did have plans, maybe he did have dreams, and just something big came in and fucked him up.
It makes you think about yourself, though.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think about, there's nothing I think about more than the idea of someone, obviously, I haven't heard this Robert story before, but I think about the idea of, 20, 30, 40 years from now, someone looking in my eyes and going, oh, there's something there, and seeing who I am, and oh, your personality is so great, or you sing so great, or you wget it is,
or
go,
like,
you could have done
like,
something.
Did you play football?
Yeah, did you
as
play
a
football?
7-year-old man?
Yeah, and you get to look back at them and you see that they're seeing your potential. But time has gone on, and that potential hasn't been realized, and perhaps you've fallen on the wrong side of that needle, and is that scary.
There's a wonderful thing in music that happens, and I noticed it when you've heard Johnny Cash's version of Hurt, right?
Yeah.
And originally, Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, he was the original artist for that song. He wrote it, he performed it. When he performed it, he was a 21-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right? And I realized the strength in age in telling a story. Because when Trent sings that song, especially when he was 21, there's hope. There's hope that you fucked up, that your life's fucked up right now, but he's got the next whatever, how many years, 20, 40, 60, 80 years of his life, whatever it is, to fix that. When Johnny Cash sang it a year before he died at 74, there's I fucked up on my life. I can't, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a man looking back on his life, realizing that any of the mistakes, any of the hurt that he's brought on himself, all that stuff, he can't do anything about it now. And that's like, in some way, that's what we're looking at here, is when someone looks at us and goes, oh, you have potential, or oh, you have this, oh, you have that. It's like, yeah, I got time to realize that potential that they see in me. But if someone sees potential in you and your time has passed, then it's just, fucked up.
It's, dude, I can't tell you how many times I worry about that, and I think about the idea of me becoming that. The sad part is, like, so it's so cliche to be, we talk about this a while ago, right? Where we say, love you, bro. We say love you to the people around us often, and we both believe in the idea that you never know when you're going to lose somebody. And even though I believe in that idea, I don't think I really understand that idea sometimes. I don't think I really. It's kind of hard to. You can't. It's hard to live your life every day. Like when you say goodbye to someone, it's hard to live your life in a way that, like, I may never see you again. It's just not reasonable.
It would almost be a little too intense.
Exactly. and so every goodbye would last so long if you actually were like, I may never see you again.
Hold on and crying and like. But there is.
Yeah,
I do think that we do better than some people who, because we do at least take the thought of, like, I want to make sure I at least say a proper goodbye. In case.
Exactly. But the fact is, you just can't think that way all the time. But it really does make you wonder. Your past, so many people, including ourselves at plenty of times, view the past as fluid. They view it as something that can be changed. If I fail today, I can succeed tomorrow, which ultimately makes the failure of yesterday not so much of a continuous failure. But if life ends and the in-between of failure to success, you stick with the last thing you accomplished, which might have been failure. The last thing you did is what you're stuck with. And so when you're looking backwards, everything is solidified to this point where it makes you almost, it feels like a deep depression to look back on the things that you expected to be fluid and to have them solidify on you in a second. Either you had an argument with somebody and you said harsh things and then suddenly they're gone. Now a past that was fluid, something that could have been moved on, you expected that you could have another moment, is just gone and it's solidified. And so when you're talking about like hurt, it's like when it's the 21-year-old, there's hope.
Right.
I fucked up,
right,
but I get to change that.
I can change that.
So the past is fluid. But then you go to Johnny Cash and the same thing, the past is beginning to solidify and there's just not enough time.
You're can't fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the I guess, like, because I've always wondered about that when it comes to when my friend Alec died in a motorcycle accident. I mean, this man worked his ass off. I mean, worked his fucking ass off. If you worked a 40-hour work week, he'd call that part-time. This man was working 60 to 80 hours a week, easy. I mean, even more on some weeks, but 60 to 80 hours a week was full-time for him. Like, he was like, that's what it is. And he took, I remember a month or like 2 months or something like that before he died, he took his first ever vacation on his job, right? And it was like, and his girlfriend at the time had to like pry him away from his work to do so. And he was a planner. He was a man who had a plan for everything in life. Like, he wanted to make sure that he had money stored away for this, for that. When they were considering marriage, he's like, okay, these are the financials that we have to hit to safely be able to afford this and that. And he just was a planner, right? And he wanted to make sure that everything was taken care of. And he died in a motorcycle accident at 26. And I couldn't help but be struck with the thought of, if someone sat him down at 21 years old, said, Alec, you're going to die in 5 years. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. 26, you're gone. I always wonder, would he have lived life like how he did? Because he was planning for the future, but that future never came. So I think to myself, would he have gone on vacations more? Would he have lived a life that maybe would have been different? Would he have been happier? I don't know. But it struck me because obviously as we deal with our battles and our stresses, I've told many people that if I had cancer and I was going to die a year from now, I wouldn't be in LA. I'd be back home in Maine. I'd be sitting by the ocean. I'd be kicking it. Just trying to enjoy friends and the family that I grew up with and just being at peace and relaxing. But if I just do that today, knowing that most likely I'm not going to die in a year, most likely, I'd be unhappy. I'd be unhappy doing that. I would be happier here because what I'm doing out here as an actor is planning for that future. I'm trying to see a future, realize a future that's going to pay off 5, 10, 15 years from now. But I was at that moment so struck with how are you supposed to live? Because if you truly live like you're dying, you're going to live differently than if you're planning to live for the next 30 years. You just are. So what's the correct way to live?
Yeah.
And obviously I came up with my own answer that works for me, but it was something that really, really stuck with me for a long time because I didn't know. I didn't know what was right. But I do know that if I was to die, I remember what I was thinking when you were telling that story about like the past and like the failures. Part of me wanted to feel like if I was to die while on this journey of trying to make it as an actor, I want at least people to remember me as someone who could have done it, who was actively working towards it, and if he had more time, he would have done it. I would want people to at least remember me like that, rather than if I gave up on it now, and they go, oh, he could have, but he gave up, and then he died. Like, I would want to die in the hustle, so that at least I had the respect of, if he had more time, he could have done it.
Yeah, so these random analogies hit me. And so I'm going to try to formulate another one that's kind of hitting me as you're talking. Here we go. I never know if it's going to play out, but it's how my brain is working right now.
You're a bold man.
We both play video games, right? I wouldn't call either one of us, gamers, but we both have played a significant amount of games, And I think about how games function normally off of these checkpoints, right? And most games nowadays just kind of save shit for you. That's just, it seems like the new way things are going, where it's just like you go into another level and they just save it for you. But there used to be a time where saving was something you had to do intentionally. Saving,
or even worse, you had to earn it.
Or even,
we had to get to save points.
Yeah, you had to get to a checkpoint, or get to, and so there was this idea that either you had to earn it or you had to be intentional about it. Either way, it was something that was intentional, right? You earn it or it's intentional, and everyone knows that feeling. Well, everyone who has played games knows the feeling of when you work your ass off, something went wrong in the game, or suddenly the power goes out, or the cartridge freezes, or whatever. Cartridge, look at that. Just dated ourselves a little bit on that. But something happens, and then you lose. You go, did I save? Right. And then when you realize you didn't, suddenly it's just this deep feeling of everything I just did is gone, and I wasted my time. And
basically
you're pissed
my whole
about it.
Pokemon career.
Exactly. You're pissed about it. You in that whole time you did this and you did that, and everything was supposed to work out great, and you fucked up the one part, which was to save it, to make sure it's solid, it's solidified, it's saved. You can go back to it at any point. And I can't help but wonder if memories and what we're doing as we're doing it is kind of the same way. Where if we don't get to those checkpoints and those points in our lives where we can go, I've made it here, and I don't have to question anything I've done in the past now. I can now go forward and continue to go on through the levels and go on through the new stuff and try this and that. But I know that at this point, what I'm looking back on is done. I did it right. I did it well. I did it the way I want to live it. And the problem seems to be that in life, we choose such a huge gap in between the checkpoints. We try to fit so much in between the moment where we can just stop and go, oh, it's done. I know that any point I start from, I can start from here. I don't need to go backwards. We choose such a huge gap that we end up fucking up in the middle of it and then losing all data. Like, we lose everything we worked for. And as you're telling me the story, that's what I'm visualizing. There's this idea of like, if you're going through life and you're not taking your time to get to your checkpoints and going, okay, I know that if I'm going to start some big endeavor, I'm starting from here. I don't need to go backwards. My ducks are all in a row as far as my past is concerned. I've said I love you to the proper people. I've made sure to enjoy my times and had my funds and put everything in order. And now I can move on to the next thing I want to accomplish, the next grand journey. But I know that I can start from this point. It feels like something that maybe people don't spend enough time on. I certainly know that I've messed up in this area a few times.
I mean, it's just tough, because if I'm trying to follow along with the analogy in a way, it's I feel like on some level people's checkpoints changes so much. What you want one moment and what would be a solid checkpoint halfway through changes, and you actually want a different checkpoint. I know so many people where it's just like the idea of sticking to one thing becomes unfun or unbearable, right? So they change it up, and then they change it up again because that thing became unfun, and et cetera. So you have 4 or 5 years that would pass along, and then they would look back at their history of checkpoints, and they're all scattered. If you're trying to achieve a goal and you're hitting checkpoints, let's say it's a narrow path, right? And it's boom, 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 boom. Then you can look back. But the way that they're making checkpoints, and a lot of people make checkpoints in life, is it's like boom, boom, boom. It's all scattered because of all these different pursuits. And then it feels like, fuck, I wasted the last 5 years of my life in that sense because of that. It's like there's a fine line between experimenting and testing things out and then just not being able to stick to one goal. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is just because I think it's interesting to think about the idea of life as checkpoints and memories as checkpoints. But what happens when you are trying to achieve the wrong checkpoints? Do you know what I mean?
Well, so my thing on that is we're going to really beat this analogy to the ground here, okay? We're going to go full game, okay? Here's my thing. In a game, we're going to go full game.
So you're telling me that we're going to lose about a new listener every...
We're about to get a little nerdy here, but I really feel like this checks out.
2,
okay?
1, lost a new listener.
Yeah, there we go. Here we go. So my thing is, if you're playing a game, right? Let's say it's an RPG. Everything you do accrues some sort of experience, and you level up. Experience is what you use to level up. Now, there's almost all games these days have one linear story that you can just get in the game, play level after level after level of the linear story. You can get through there, right? Let's say the story itself takes 15 minutes to accomplish. Well, you might have 15 hours to accomplish. You might have another 10 hours of gameplay if you were to take these side stories. And so I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with these side checkpoints if you're scatterbrained in which way, as long as you're making sure that the experience that you're taking in is saved. The things that are changing you and building you and making your character stronger, the person who you are stronger, as long as you implement those checkpoints still. As long as you're still capable of going, okay, even when I get back to the story that I was supposed to do, because I'm on a side mission that has nothing to do with the main story, once I get back to that main story, I have all of the experience that I had from that side story. And my problem is, with what you were kind of saying, is people will do all these side stories and then forget to save. And so not only have they spent so much time doing things that weren't the story, when they come back and they haven't saved and now they're doing the story, they also have none of the experience that they had from doing the side stories. So they're starting on the main story they're supposed to be on the whole time, and they're still at square one. Their side stories did nothing to make them better or stronger or more capable. And that, to me, is what I feel like when you say people are all over the place. It's okay to get scatterbrained a little bit. It's okay to go off the main course. People do that all the time. But as long as you make sure the experiences that you get add to who you are, so that when you realign with what you're supposed to be focusing on, you are better for that mission than you were before, I think it's cool. But I think that kind of, well, I don't know if this is what you were saying, but in the situation you're bringing up, I feel like people do that. They get scatterbrained. They get off the main course, and then they forget everything they were doing while they were doing that. And so the experience they have when they come back is none, which makes them just as useless as the point they started.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. For me, and we'll wrap this little analogy up so people don't be like, what the fuck? They're talking about save points for fucking 20 minutes. My thing is I'm terrified, or at least I was before I started pursuing acting again, I was terrified of being 40 or 50 and looking back and realizing that I had never really actually went for anything in my life. I never actually gave it a real shot. I was a jack of all trades, and I was really good at a lot of trades, but I never became a master of any of them. And I was terrified because the idea that when I'm 50, 55, I can't go back and do that stuff now. I wasted my opportunity. And I feel like a lot of people, when you're 20 and 30, you're testing so many things out, but you don't settle on anything. It feels right in the small time because you're looking at things at such a small scope. You're looking at, well, I only spent 3 months doing this, 6 months doing this, a year doing this. But you add that up, and they never got back on, to go back to this analogy, the main quest. They just did all the side stories, and it's great to do in a video game because you can always go back to the main quest, and usually
but in life the clock's ticking.
Yeah, but in life you don't always got time to do that, so you're wasting your time fucking hunting for fucking gems or some shit on a side quest and completely ignoring the main one, and you are running out of time. And so for me, it's just one of those things that when we look at how to live life, there's basically two schools of thoughts, and then there's many thoughts that branch out into it. You can spend your life trying to accomplish basically living each day to the fullest. And that could be doing whatever pursuit you fancy. That could be doing a bunch of different side quests and be happy doing that. You can also live your life pursuing one or two main objectives in your life and becoming a master of them, but not having time for all the little side quests, and you can be happy doing that. I'm not telling anyone how they should live their life, but I know so many people that want to be main quest people that fill up all their time with side quests because they're fun and easy and they're interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where people get unhappy.
For sure.
So anyway, I know that was a huge tangent of what we were talking about, but
yeah, if you get off the gaming portion of it, the fact is, a lot of people don't like to. There's a quote I heard that was fucking beautiful. It said, I'm paraphrasing here, kind of, but it said you work hard. If you work hard, life is easy. If you work easy, life is hard. And I don't know how I went my whole life not hearing this, but I just heard this in the past few months.
Really? Yeah.
And maybe everyone has heard it before, but I heard it and I was like, word.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Like, I was like, oh shit, it's all making sense now. I was like, that thing that you do when you're hitting that. Let's get off. I'm not going to say main course, but when you're working
on your
hard
pursuits,
and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, at least to the best of your knowledge,
you'll be
you
tired.
Believe this is what you're supposed to do.
You'll be tired.
You'll be fatigued. You'll feel beaten down. But damn it, once you do that, the rest of it becomes easy. If we spend so much time in this easy space. We talked on a podcast a long time ago about how we used to be content just having drinks with the boys, as we have drinks with the boys, but having drinks and just not really worrying about what it is we're supposed to be doing in life and being content with doing that because there's always the future potential. Okay, we talked about in the past. So when you spend your whole time doing that because it's easy, but because it makes you happy in the moment, you're not delaying any of that gratification. What ends up happening is that time begins to slip. And all of life begins to evolve. Life keeps evolving. Yeah. Whether you do or not, life keeps on moving. Life keeps on changing. Life gets tougher and tougher and tougher. And so it is the act of working hard that brings the easy. That shit was profound to me.
I just think that I think the biggest mistake you can make, whatever you're pursuing in your life, the biggest mistake that you can make, and we're all victims of it, all of us, no matter how mentally strong you are, no matter how disciplined you are, you've made this mistake too. The biggest mistake to me is assuming that you will have more time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because it could be robbed from you, like sadly it was my friend Alec. And part of me is, I think when someone passes away, you'll look for some lessons in it. I think it just helps us human beings cope with it, and I think some people refer to religion in that sense, the ways that like lessons and things that can cope and stuff. For me, it was just I gotta keep working on what I want to do. I gotta keep working on my dreams, and I have to succeed partially because of Alec, because he couldn't. He didn't get to. I am gifted with the ability to right now at this current moment still be living. Yes,
blessed with time.
So why would I waste that? And so I do think I think about them a lot, and I do think about, when I'm tired or I'm exhausted or I don't want to keep going. I go, yeah, I am. I'm still blessed with time, and I have to do something with that because it may not always be the case.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
what time are we at?
we're looking at 39, so we'll wrap it up here soon.
So kind of to bring it full circle a little bit, because I like the way this kind of all connects. Is you talk about Alec, right? And rest in peace. I didn't know him, but I was here when or I was around when you heard the news. That's awful and it's terrible, and it sounded like a hardworking man was taken too soon. But you look at that and you use that and you use it to say, okay, I got the time that he doesn't have. I'm blessed with something that he doesn't have, and in respects for what was taken from him, I must honor what was given to me. And it takes me back to a 93-year-old man who looks at my strength and goes, do you appreciate it? Something that I live my life every day. The fact that I can, when I'm doing Instacart and I'm carrying 6 bags in each hand and I'm just taking them, I don't even think twice about it. But the fact is that regardless of what situation we are, there is something in our lives that we got to look at and go, someone else would kill for this thing. And there's got to be a certain level of gratitude. And with that gratitude has to be immediately a certain level of drive to do with it what other people can't even do. Right? The only reason we're here is to give back in some way. The only reason we're here is to influence or affect the people around us in some way, be it your family or your close-knit people, be it the rest of the world, whatever team you want to say that you play on, we're here to make that team better. And so you got to take what you have that other people don't get to have and do with it things that other people don't get to do, because you are blessed in that way.
And I think that act naturally continues the cycle for other people to pursue their lives. Let's look at it from this analogy, right? Someone who comes up from a poverty type circumstances, works their ass off, figures out how to get out of that circumstance, and then succeeds in whatever area they're doing, be that music, be that business, be that acting, whatever, right? They worked their way up and came up and did that. And then they were blessed with opportunities and time. And the fact that if they're in a poverty circumstance, they didn't get sick or they didn't die early or they didn't, anything that could have happened to them there didn't happen. So then they keep working because they go, I know people back home, I know people back where I grew up that don't have what I got. So I got to keep working.
Exactly.
And then what happens is the people in those circumstances look at that person and go, well, if he did it, I can do it. So then this cycle repeats, and then someone else works their way up, same circumstances. And so I do believe that, again, when it comes to pursuing your dreams, it ultimately looks like a selfish goal on some level, right? Like, oh, this guy's going to just try his shit and like work on him. It is ultimately, some people like to think of it as a selfish act, but I see it as a very generous act, because if you do it right, it inspires others to hopefully try to live the best life that they possibly can, whatever would make them happy.
Yeah, well, there's a certain, the thing is, you say the cycle repeats, and that does happen to some extent, but even better, the quote, a rising tide raises all ships.
Well, that's what I mean by,
what happens is, you work your ass off. Let's say it's a family line, right? Let's make it real close. It's just the people around you. Maybe it's your children that you have or you'll eventually have, right? You work your ass off, okay? You start from nothing. You make something of yourself, and starting from nothing, you can go to making $40,000 a year. That's a pretty basic job in America. Right? That's a 9 to 5 often. That's not achieving too much financially. It's within reason to dream for and to go for. So you make $40,000. That's more than you were given starting out. So now you get to raise a family where you're living in the middle of the line, right? You're not poverty, but you're not necessarily rich. You're living in the middle. So now your children get to look at that and go, oh, my father wishes that he could start at this point. He didn't get to start at this. He had to work his ass off to get where he was, to give us what we got. So I'm going to take what I have that he didn't have, and I'm going to do with it what he couldn't. So now they get to work from a spot. So now they're going with that 40,000 start. Maybe I'm throwing out numbers, but maybe they go to 80,000, right?
No, I get you.
And it just keeps on going. A rising tide raises all ships.
I just think it's an interesting idea of the for me, what really is just so interesting about it is the idea that people can, just by living their lives, like you're looking at family situation, which is absolutely an accurate thing.
So it expands, but I think family is the closest thing.
And then giving back to community and stuff. I just think that by people living their life to the fullest, what I'm kind of getting at is people who live their life to the fullest and people who try to reach for stuff, just the act of doing that allows others to feel comfortable to do so as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think that's ultimately a wonderful thing. And I think when it comes to like the 93-year-old man, do you appreciate it? All of that's connected because now you're going to appreciate it, and then maybe you'll pass that lesson on to the person behind you, or et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and so I was thinking, I was driving today, and I was alone in the car, and I was having this thought about focusing on the team you're with, and focusing on the only reason we make ourselves better is to give to other people, right? And I was talking about every avenue of that. If you're playing basketball, you're on a team, and you got to be the best. If you're in a band, you got to be the best you can be because that makes the band better, right? We're always giving back. The more we give into ourselves allows us to better give back to others. So that's one of the aims, in my opinion, right? Leadership is influence. The only thing good about a leader is the ability to affect others in a positive way. And so I'm thinking about this, and then I go, but what happens if you're just the best in like a solo field? Like, what if you're the Tiger Woods? You're playing golf, and it's just you, and you're just really good, right? What if you're the best, at shooting, right? Just you, and you're just good. You're the best. And I was like, is it kind of like, what does that do? Is there a benefit to that? What does that do? And then I thought of the fact of when you are the best at something, even if it's not immediately giving to some team, what you do is increase the quality of the game. For someone to get better than you, they have to rise to another level, which increases the quality of the game. I remember, I think it's Michael Phelps. That's a swimming guy, right? I never watched him, but I know his name.
Okay.
But I remember he told a story about he was the best swimmer, and then he met a guy. I think it might have been an Asian boy or something like that. But
okay.
The guy was like, it's my dream to swim against you and whatnot, and I look up to you. And then one day Michael Phelps lost to that kid.
Well, you look at like if you're going back and forth, you're going back, and we'll wrap this up right here basically. But back in I think it was like 1930, 1940, they thought, I can't remember the exact time, they thought it was impossible to run a 4-minute mile. They thought it was physically all the scientists and all the data pointed to that the human body, it is impossible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Our body just cannot handle it. When the day came that someone broke that barrier, now we have, I think, at least 23 high school athletes have ran a mile in under 4 minutes. So the idea, and that's high school athletes, not just the amount of people who have done, 23 high school students, if I remember correctly, have done so, for what was previously thought as a human impossibility. The idea that one person breaks that barrier, once that belief gets built into someone's mind, someone else did it, I can do it too.
Oh, yeah.
I can do better than that.
Oh, yeah.
That's where this continuation process happens.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about being grateful for what you got because someone else doesn't have what you have. And with that, you got to do with it what other people cannot do.
And with that, Thanksgiving is coming up, everybody. So if you're lucky enough,
this is the Thanksgiving podcast.
If you're lucky enough,
here we go,
to enjoy time with the family safely and with COVID
gobble,
restrictions
gobble,
in place.
listen to the restrictions.
Be grateful for what you do have, and be hungry, like the food on your plate, for more.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. We love sitting down with you. I'll see you next time.
All right, guys. Peace out.